Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is Tuesday, October 20th, and our guests today are delighted to have our old friend Stephen St. John, host of the Border Patrol on 810 WHB. Stephen, good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Always look forward to speaking to the Tiger Club.
Well, you're certainly one of our favorites in this strange year. I hope you can give us some interesting information as you always do. First of all, talk about the Tigers. Coming off, unfortunately, we couldn't play last week. Coming off, though, I think one of the great wins, certainly in recent years for the program against LSU. It was not only they're -3 in turnovers. Connor Bazelak was awesome. Nick Bolton continues to play as an All-American level, but that goal line stand at the end was just fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, it's funny when you had a game where the quarterback only had 5 incompletions and threw for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. It looked terrific. Man, the thing that sticks in my mind was that goal line stand, because especially, I mean, look, as a Mizzou fan, we've seen that game play out a few times where Mizzou needed to stop and something awful would happen. I mean, you don't have to look any further back than that Kentucky game where you thought you stopped them on 4th down and they got one free play and won it there. And so, the drive's happening, and then especially the flow of the game where there wasn't a whole lot of defense. And it kind of just felt like whoever has the ball last is going to win the game. And as LSU's driving down the field, it's almost like that impending doom, like, I've seen this before. And then, I don't know about you guys, but, at one point I'm saying, call a timeout, call some timeouts and let Bazelak have a chance to win at the end. And then I had a buddy texting me. I didn't go this far, but started texting me, under a minute, like, don't just let him score. Let him score. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. It's like, call a timeout, let him score, play defense. And so while we're like going through that, okay, they ran it, then they ran it again. Now it's 3rd down. Well, now we're in it. Let's go. And then when Bolton batted down that pass and it's 4th down, I needed a timeout just for me, because it was like too much. It's happening too fast. It was, that's why I'd be a terrible head football coach. I'd call like 10 timeouts. And I was like, I don't know what's happening right now, but all of a sudden it's 4th down. And again, I hate to admit it, but I'm almost anticipating, okay, what penalty is going to be called against Missouri? The pass is going to hit someone in the helmet, and then they're going to catch it in the end zone. Something awful is going to happen. The play happens, pass deflected, and you're waiting. And like my son starts jumping up and down, so don't do that. And I'm looking everywhere for a flag. I'm trying to, where's the flag at? Where's the flag? I know there's a flag. There's no flag. There's no flag. They won. And then it's almost like a delayed response. They won the game. And so that was remarkable. And you can say whatever you want about LSU's defense and everything else. I don't care. They had the ball at the 1-yard line, 4 plays to get it in, and they didn't get it in. And that's something that I have not seen before. And with the way they moved the football, I think that was just fantastic. And so as great as Bazelak was and all the things that happened in that game, man, I'll think about that goal line stand for a long, long time, because even when it was 4th down, I did not think they were going to stop LSU, and boy, did they.
Well, we laugh when you talk about your feelings during that, because we all shared them, that even the play right before the 1st down, I thought it was a very disputed catch at the 1-yard line, and it held. And again, memories of the Kentucky game 2 years ago came back. So it was a great win.
No, absolutely. That's the same thing. I was thinking about the Kentucky game, and that was and what a vote of confidence for the defense. Trusting them out there, and now they have the belief that if the game's on the line and that unit is out there, well, they can win the football game. And that's kind of like, I kind of compare that mentality to 2018 Chiefs. You remember when Mahomes would just move the football up and down the field, and they had 2 or 3 opportunities in that season for the defense to get a stop and win the game. And that even happened in the AFC Championship game, and they couldn't do it. Then the next year they were able to win games. And I think that's a huge step forward when the defense knows it's all on them and they can get a stop against a team like LSU. I think that's going to pay huge dividends down the road.
It's fair to say, I think everybody that's Tiger fan is pretty impressed with Eli Drinkwater, both on and off the field. Like to get your impressions of the early stages of his career at Mizzou.
I probably like listening to press conferences more than the average person because that provides content for my show. And I like to read into what coaches say and how they speak. And man, do I love listening to him talk football and just talk about his philosophies and what he wants to accomplish. And even some of the things that he's talked about with his players and what they're trying to do as far as, the election year and getting people to vote and do things outside of football. It's, we see so many times in college and in the NFL where coaches just rely and use, coach speak as a crutch and don't really tell you too much. And it's been refreshing to listen to Eli Drinkwater's talk football, talk life, and just talk about his philosophy. So I like that, first of all. And then, just the absolute confidence that he shows. I mean, the confidence he showed in his defense, like I said, in that goal line stand. Look, Alabama, that's a tough out. I mean, there's very few teams that are going to beat Alabama the first game of the season. It was disappointing in the Tennessee game, and I was a little disappointed earlier on because I thought Bazelak, I talked about it on the show. I thought he should have started, and Coach Gary Barnett, who I know you guys are going to talk to next week. After that Alabama game, he said, "Hey, the one thing I take away is I like Connor Bazelak. I'd like to see him get the start in the second game, and I like what I see there." Didn't, and in the first quarter against Tennessee was kind of just a giveaway. They couldn't do anything offensively, and not that they would have won the game, but it would have been interesting to see what the offense could have done if Bazelak would have started, from the first snap. But we got that in the game against LSU, and now it's really, really exciting. And I don't know if you guys heard the comments from Aaron Murray, who was a former Georgia quarterback that had a cup of coffee with the Chiefs after he was a 4th-round pick, but he was on Sirius XM College Sports Radio the week after that win against LSU, and he said that he thought that Connor Bazelak was the most gifted quarterback in the SEC just based on size and skill set and what he has to work with, and said that in a couple of years that he thinks he'll be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. And look, that's a lot to say after one game, but that is a guy that set multiple records at Georgia when he was a quarterback and did get drafted. And when someone like that's tied to Georgia, that doesn't have any ties to Mizzou, says that, you kind of sit up and listen when he says that Bazelak's the most gifted quarterback in the SEC and thinks he'll be a first-round pick. Boy, that's exciting for the next couple of years to see him grow into this role of being a starting quarterback when he was a wishbone quarterback in high school and didn't get the same amount of reps as you see some of these spread quarterbacks have out of high school. And even Eli Drinkwater said about that. So if you think about Eli Drinkwater, his play calling and the ability to put some more talent around Connor Bazelak, boy, this is going to be a lot of fun for the next couple of years.
All right. I'd like to remind all our viewers, if you want to ask Stephen a question, to use that chat feature at the bottom of the Zoom, and we will get to the questions later on in the program. Stephen, Tigers have Kentucky coming up now this week with the change in the schedule. Again, that was originally supposed to be a home game on October 31st. It will be this Saturday, October 24th. Kentucky, very interesting team. Beginning of the season, they looked terrible. They got hammered by Auburn. They gave up 42 points to Ole Miss. In the last 2 games, they've given up 9 points. They've had 10 turnovers, including 9 interceptions in the last 2 games. Their defense is playing at a very high level. They've really turned it around.
And look, and Kentucky's a different program under Stoops, and they've started to develop NFL talent. You've seen that, and for me, it almost feels like that decides whether or not Mizzou's going to have a good football season anymore. Do they beat Kentucky? Because Georgia and Florida are going to be now at the top, and those are the teams you have to beat to try to win the division. And, more times than not, Vanderbilt's going to be down at the bottom. Tennessee's still kind of in the middle there. I mean, we saw it looked like they were going to be really, really good. And they just got embarrassed by Kentucky. But I think the Kentucky team game is so important because, Mizzou should be better than Kentucky. They should have a better football program than Kentucky, and they should beat Kentucky, more times than not. And I really feel like, especially now with Kentucky coming off that win, and Mizzou coming off the win against LSU, that would be a huge step forward and really a great sign if Mizzou can beat Kentucky and really give them a shot to finish at 500 or above 500, what I think would be a great accomplishment for Eli Drinkwater, considering the situation that they're in, considering the early season schedule that they were saddled with, and really in a first year to have those kind of wins to build upon, I think would be huge. So this game is one that I had circled, and I'm excited that that's going to happen this Saturday, and hopefully give them a chance to build, coming off a bye week, and build off the momentum that they created with that win against LSU.
Well, Missouri's lost 5 straight to Kentucky, so it's time. They've been the Tigers' kryptonite, and
right.
That loss 2 years ago was just bizarro how that ended up. And anyway, hopefully we can turn around this week. And then you look at the SEC in general. Arkansas is playing very well. There's just no gimmies in the schedule this year. No,
I mean, you would think. Here I go. You would think Vanderbilt, but I think everyone learned their lesson from last year. And that was what sank the ship last year, really, when you lose to Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt just doesn't have the offensive firepower, especially now that we've seen what Missouri's offense can be. So you would think that would be the one win that you certainly should count on. But we know not to count on anything, because Vanderbilt's upset Missouri a couple of times. Yeah. But this Kentucky, man, and again, like you said, losing 5 in a row to Kentucky, this would be a huge win for Eli Drinkwater. And I mean, you like their chances against South Carolina. Georgia's going to be tough. Georgia's always tough, but it opens things up more now. That I feel differently after that LSU game, much differently than I did after the Tennessee game. Kind of felt bad, and you're looking for wins. Now you see, I mean, really, except for the Georgia game, anything's on the table right now. Mizzou plays well. I mean, at Florida, who knows what's going on at Florida between the coach and the players and everything else. That's all hell's breaking loose down there. But you feel better about Mizzou's chance to go out there and get a few more wins. And like I said, get 5 or 6 wins this year, which should be the goal, which I think would be a great building block. But the SEC is tough to figure out right now, like I said. And you pointed out, Kentucky looked bad, and they looked really good. Tennessee looked really good, then they looked really bad. I don't know. And maybe it has to do with the lack of practice and all the uncertainty around the schedule. And maybe that's going to lead to more upsets. I'm here for it. Let's see if Mizzou can pull off 1 or 2 more this season.
Comment from one of our viewers: no Mizzou players out with COVID or contact tracing as of now. Coach Drink just said at his news conference, there are a few with sickness, but nothing COVID related. First time this season the Tigers will be at least full strength because against the virus. So that's a good sign.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's about time. They've been hamstrung enough by that, and they had a situation where they were down several wide receivers and interior defensive linemen, and so hopefully you'll start to see them be able to get a full complement of their roster, and that would be exciting as well. Because, and that's another thing. Again, you can say whatever you want about LSU's defense, and it's fun because Bo Pelini's the defensive coordinator. Let's be honest, like to see him fail. Sorry, I just do. And boy, wasn't he mad? He was mad at his mask. He was chomping his gum. He was pissed throughout the entire game, and that was worth the price of admission. But look, Mizzou, look at the receivers. I mean, didn't you have to check the box score? Like, who was that again that just made that great catch? Like, I was looking at names, and I'm pretty well versed on the Mizzou roster. I'm thinking, I don't know who that was, but I like him. And so they were doing that with a lot of wide receivers that really weren't supposed to be on the field. And so, it's amazing to see what Mizzou has been able to do, considering they had so many players out, and they got that goal line stand, and they were missing a couple of key interior defensive linemen as well. So that's great news for the football team.
All right, let's talk about the Chiefs for a little bit. Last night, a good solid win over Buffalo. It was, as a Star put it this morning, ground and pound under Andy Reid, which we haven't really seen before. I watched that game, and I know you talked about it in your show this morning. You look at the numbers now. The Chiefs controlled the clock, but I was still uncomfortable in the fourth quarter that the Bills were still could go ahead with a score.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Eli had that fumble, the Chiefs were only up 6 with about 5 minutes left in the game, and if they would have got the ball there around the 30, and they had just had a 75-yard touchdown drive, if they score, you're talking about being down with a couple of minutes left, on the road against a pretty good football team. And it just didn't feel like it should be that way, considering they had outgained them 2-1. Josh Allen was totally ineffective. They couldn't run the football, but the Chiefs settled for field goals a couple of times. Had that fumble by Kelsey before halftime that cost him a chance to another 3 points, missed an extra point. And here's the thing with other teams are going to continue to do this, because if you look at if you're trying to pick what poison you're going to have to deal with, you'll take Mahomes handing the football off 40 times as opposed to him making huge plays that put the game away. Like what the Ravens did against the Chiefs, you can't do that. You can't send out all-out blitzes and blitz. Mahomes will eat you alive, and that's what he did against the Ravens. The Raiders and the Bills have tried to do this where they're dropping 8 back, and even the Patriots and forcing Mahomes to be patient and try to take what the defense gives them. But now, look, with bringing in LeVeon Bell as well, it may not be as efficient because you're getting even 4 and 5 yards a pop. But I think teams will take that as opposed to what Mahomes can do if he's getting the proper protection and going downfield. I mean, if you'd have told me that Tyreek Hill was only going to have 3 catches and McCole Hardman was going to have 0 catches and they were going to have a lot of big plays and Mitchell Schwartz was going to leave the game in the first quarter, I wouldn't have felt great about their chances of winning. But that's something that the Patriots did for 15 years. And now the Chiefs are showing they can do. They can win in different ways. Oh, you're going to take away the deep ball? We're going to run the hell out of the ball. Oh, you're going to blitz us? Well, we're going to beat you over the top. And that's when you see the evolution of Mahomes. Last night, he only had like 4 or 5 incompletions, hit 2 touchdown passes, and that one play on 3rd and 12 to Byron Pringle. I mean, that was the Chiefs were only up by 6 there. And if they don't pick up that 3rd down, they're punting to Buffalo, only holding on to a 6-point lead. But Mahomes was given the chance, put the dagger in the heart, and the game was over. But it is going to be interesting to see what teams do moving forward. If they're going to try to force the Chiefs to beat them with the run game and not allow Mahomes to beat them deep, maybe they're just going to win games like that. But it's good to see that last night they showed they could win games in multiple different ways with different offensive approaches.
I feel kind of funny. It's like we're almost complaining about a 9-point win on the road against a contender, but I think we've gotten a little spoiled. But my game ball last night went to Andy Heck, the offensive line coach. What they put together with Daniel Kilgore and Allegretti and Schwartz going out, it was really impressive how the offensive line dominated. Troy Aikman commented several times that they were just blowing the Bills off the ball.
You had Daniel Kilgore, who was a free agent that nobody wanted, that they signed August 27th.
Right.
Who started some games for Miami the last couple of years. You had Nick Allegretti, who was a 7th round pick out of Illinois last year, that really got his first meaningful playing time last night. And you had Mike Remmers, who was, again, one of those afterthought free agents that they signed from the New York Giants in the offseason. And he started at guard, and then they moved him out, and he played right tackle for most of the game. And remember, that's the same guy that when Andrew Wiley had to go to the hospital an hour before the Ravens game, he stepped in at guard, and they had their best offensive performance. And so that you credit Andy Heck and Andy Reid being the former offensive lineman, and of course, offensive line coach at Mizzou. He loves versatility in his offensive linemen, guys who can play multiple positions. And you saw that pay dividends last night. And you're right, that was a terrific performance from an offensive line that had 3 backups in the starting lineup.
So this week, Denver Broncos get to see our old friend Drew Lock. I always want Drew to play very well, and I just don't want him to beat us. But the Broncos do present more challenges on the defensive line than the Bills do. They're a much better pass rushing team. What do you think of this game coming up?
So that was a good win, but an ugly win when they beat the Patriots 18-12, and Drew, unfortunately, ran through a couple of bad interceptions. But
the play they called after they took over, they were in their own territory and not that much time left in the game, and he throws a bomb on first down. It was a bad play by him, but what a terrible play call, I thought.
Oh, all the way around. That was a group effort there. And look, I mean, look, they have to play a lot better to be able to hang with the Chiefs. I don't know that they can do that. The Chiefs would have to play a bad game and make several mistakes to lose to Denver at this point. Plus, Denver's been ravaged, by injury. Cortland Sutton, who was their number 1 receiver, he's gone. And they're, and Von Miller, they're by far their best defensive player. So this is not the Denver Broncos team that we were supposed to see. But what's going to hold them back, and why I kind of feel bad for Drew right now, their offensive line is not good enough, and they don't protect him enough. And so they got to try to rely on the run game and the short passing attack. Jerry Jeudy is obviously a very good receiver they took in the first round, and they've got some guys like Noah Fant, a good tight end, but that offensive line needs a lot of work before they're going to see the best out of Drew Lock. And I just don't think that they can beat the Chiefs right now.
Well, the schedule seems to be lightening up. We got the Broncos, Jets, and the Panthers, and I think the Raiders are a Sunday night game in November. That will be a very interesting revenge factor game.
Absolutely, and like you said, you got the Broncos. You come home and play the Jets, and I mean, I don't know if I don't think there is a more poorly coached football team than the New York Jets. I mean, they just got beat by the Dolphins 24-0. And then they play the Panthers, and then they'll have a little bit of time, a bye week there before they go on the road in the revenge game against the Raiders. So I would anticipate them being 8-1 heading into that showdown with the Raiders. That'll be an important stretch because they play at the Raiders, and then they play at the Buccaneers, who dismantled the Packers on Sunday night. So that should be really interesting. And this Sunday night, the Raiders play the Bucs, so you'll get a chance to see two upcoming opponents, and that'll be interesting to see if the Raiders can follow up their performance with against the Chiefs and take on a really good defense and Tom Brady and the Bucs, who look just fantastic against the Packers.
I was listening to your show last week after the Chiefs signed LeVeon Bell, and it was interesting. You were getting some tweets and texts that was not a good signing, and I just like, what are these people thinking? I mean, it basically costs the Chiefs nothing in payroll. The Jets are paying the guy, and what could it hurt? I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, obviously on social media, some people just their instant reactions would be negative about anything. But somebody else, well, does he play offensive line? No, he doesn't. And look, I'm sorry, there wasn't a Pro Bowl offensive lineman that was sitting in the waiting room at Arrowhead waiting to be signed, and they picked LeVeon Bell instead. Look, what happened was a good player became available because shockingly the Jets couldn't figure out how to use him the right way. Stop me when you've heard that before. And so he's available. The idea for the Chiefs was to have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Damian Williams as a 1-2 punch. Damian Williams opted out to take care of his mother. And so now when you look at it, if Clyde gets hurt, I'm not feeling great about Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson as being the running backs. And so you had a spot where you needed a veteran running back and a guy that's really good in pass protection. We don't talk about that. We just talk about whether a guy can run and catch the ball. He's terrific in pass pro. And that's something Clyde, that's why he's not in there a lot in third down, and Darrell Williams is. So you got a guy that's great at pass protection, and really a guy that if they want to, they can line him up in the slot and have him and Clyde on the field at the same time. He had 80 catches back in 2017. And so he was in a bad situation with the Jets. They let him go. And like you said, they're paying him less than $1 million for the rest of the year. They didn't give him any draft picks. The money's not a thing. It was just a free agent signing. And if Clyde were to get hurt or banged up, then you've got a guy you can go to. Best case scenario, you just have another weapon to use on third down and a guy that can help with pass protection and be just a matchup nightmare for opposing teams. Yeah, there's no downside there. There's no downside. And so why not take that opportunity? Look, the Bills wanted him. The Dolphins wanted him. There are other teams that are in the playoff hunt that wanted him, and he picked to come to Kansas City. If he wanted money, he would have gone to the Dolphins. If he wanted to be the starter, he would have gone to the Bills. He wants to chase a ring, and this is what the Patriots did all those years. This is what, remember when the Broncos had Peyton Manning and they'd sign everyone, you're like, what is there a salary cap? That's what the rest of the NFL feels like now. The Chiefs signed Mahomes the extension, signed Chris Jones the extension, are able to do whatever they want, it seems like, because players are willing to play in Kansas City for less money because they want to chase a ring, and that's what happened here.
Well, and also Clyde had, I think, almost 30 touches last night, and he can't do that every game over a 16-game season. So the other interesting thing last night was the Chiefs were without Anthony Sherman and were able to, who's out because of COVID exposure, and they were still able to run the ball that well. And they lined up Kelsey, I think, in the fullback position a few times.
And Kelsey is a greatly improved blocker. And again, even though we don't know what it'll be like if they were, pass protecting, 30 or 35 times, that specific lineup with Kilgore and Allegretti, those guys are maulers. Their strength is run blocking. And then Remmer's going on the outside because they weren't asking them to do very much. And there were a lot of just zone running plays. They scaled it back and just used a couple of run plays they felt really good about and kind of simplified things. And you saw with that particular offensive, like that holding call that Allegretti got called for, he just mauled him. he just took him to the ground. And it's like he was so dominant on that play that I feel like the official was like, I got to call something. I don't know what it is. It's a penalty. You know, you're not supposed to dominate a guy like that. And so they're very impressive. But that's also Andy Reid maybe feeling embarrassed about his team's performance the week before. And so he went in the lab and said, you know what, we're going to run the hell out of the football. We're going to, and there were questions about how physical they were. Did the Raiders, did they out physical the Chiefs in that game? Well, you saw Andy Reid being very specific and going out of his way to prove a point last night and to give Clyde a little bit of confidence after they signed LeVeon Bell and to show that his team's not going to be pushed around in the trenches by another playoff team. And that's what happened last night. I think they proved a lot of doubters wrong about what they could do.
We're going to get some questions from our viewers. Again, folks, if you want to ask a question, go down to the chat feature and just click on that. And then I will read Stephen the questions as we go. Stephen, before we do get to the questions, just talk about how your life has changed since COVID as far as working from home, going to the studio, et cetera.
Oh, geez. It's been a lot different. I mean, I think back to, being in Miami for the Super Bowl. I was down there for 9 days, which is one of the greatest experiences of my professional life. And then you come back and, the parade and then getting ready for my duties on stage at the Big 12 tournament. And they had, that first night, all hell broke loose. And then here we are several months later. And it's been obviously a challenge. Like for me, I'm lucky because I've been able to do my show from home for all these months. And I'm a little bit more cautious because I have a heart condition that I have to protect, and I'm a little bit more at risk if I were to get COVID. And so thankfully my bosses and my company are very flexible with me. And I have, technology a couple of years ago would not have allowed me to be able to do the show here. But it's been really good. And my son is a senior at St. Pius. So he's going to school there. But then my twin daughters are in 6th grade, so they're staying home, and so it's helped me. So I do my show, and then I kind of play, teacher, which boy, they need to get an upgrade there. And don't ask me about 6th grade math. I tell them because I want them to learn. What they don't know is I have no idea how to solve any of the problems. It's like would have been one of the worst things I've ever experienced when a 6th grader asked me for help with the homework, and I'm like. I just can't tell you the answer. You got to learn for yourself. I don't know the answer. But, other than that, a lot of the events I got, we haven't done remotes and things. I was telling you guys before we started the Zoom, a lot of charity events that I do, unfortunately, have had to shift to virtual. And so I've been doing those, but still finding a way to get things done. But it's certainly been different. And, you can't go out and talk to Chiefs players in the locker room and do interviews. Everything's on Zoom. So it's totally changed the way I do my job, but I have been more efficient and I do get more stuff done thanks to Zoom and thanks to being able to have access to doing things virtually.
Stay healthy. That's what above all.
That's right.
The Big 12 tournament, I was doing the public address that first night on Wednesday, and I had to announce twice that the rest of the tournament was going to be played without fans and was booed lustily. And then the next day it was done. That's the night was the tipping point, it seemed. It was quite an evening.
Right. Yeah. And we were on stage and there was still, a number of people out there and we kept getting reports like, are you sure? Are you sure whether this is over? Right. And like people didn't believe it. I mean, even the mayor was walking through that night and kind of checking things out. And it just, it's crazy what, obviously how naive and what we didn't know then, but, and look, and people have asked me what's been the most challenging thing. You know what? There really aren't any more challenges as far as my job. I did a show for a few months, a sports talk show, and there were no games being played for I thought, okay, we'll get through this for a week or two. Then it was 4 weeks. Then it was 5 weeks. And so I can do a show in any circumstances now because I was pulling stuff out of my rear for about 2 or 3 months. So I'm all good now. If I only get to talk about World Series Game 1 now. I could do that for 5 hours, considering I was talking about my favorite sports movie for 2 or 3 days in a row. So it's challenges have been met. So I'm good. Onward and upward.
All right, let's get to some questions. Is Barry Odom the epitome of the beater principle? In other words, is he one of the best defensive coordinators, but not comfortable as a head coach?
You know what? And I'm glad he's doing well.
I'm a big Barry Odom fan.
I like Barry a lot.
I do too.
And I will root for him. And I don't know if this is going to happen, but I've seen a few times, whether it's the NFL or college, where for whatever reason, a guy maybe there wasn't quite ready for everything the first time being a head coach. And it's not just, and especially in college, it's not just X's and O's. Then it's the recruiting. Then it's handling the media. Then it's being in the spotlight. It's being the front guy. And not to say that he's totally uncomfortable, but he comes off to me as a guy that maybe second time around, he'll have figured out some things that will lead him to be more successful if he gets that opportunity again. Or he can just say, look, this is my sweet spot. I was a pretty good head coach. I'm a great defensive coordinator. And you could see there are guys that, I mean, you can get paid $2 million a year and be a defensive coordinator and make a hell of a living and win championships. And when we've seen that from a few guys out there, and wait for that one opening or the right spot. You don't have to rush back into it. And so who knows if that happens, but I certainly think if he stays and he decides he just wants to be a defensive coordinator, there's nothing wrong with that, because he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. We're already seeing, and that's been one of the more surprising things so far about the SEC. Like you said, I mean, Arkansas has been a train wreck. I mean, they couldn't win an SEC game, and now they're winning SEC games. And so I loved the hire of Barry. I didn't think Pittman. I didn't say, wow, boy, Arkansas got that figured out. They nailed that one. I thought that was maybe had a chance to be a flop of a hire. And who knows, it still could be, but they played much better so far than I thought they would. And a big part of that is Barry at the defensive coordinator.
Well, and I watched the end of their game with Auburn. There was a very bad call at the end of the game, set up Auburn's game-winning field goal. They could be 3-1 right now.
Right. That's right.
All right, next question from Darren. We always love hearing you talk with Mizzou head football coach. We understand why that hasn't been able to happen this year. Do you think you will be able to talk to them again soon on your show? And I guess football or basketball. So.
Yeah, so I'll just be honest with you. So we had everything set up, and I interviewed Coach Drinkwitz just a day or two after he was hired. And then we had everything set up with Mizzou and to have him on a weekly basis on my show. And then the week of the first game, the week of the Alabama game, I was contacted by the SID that's handling Mizzou football, and said that, and what I was told with Eli Drinkwitz added responsibilities of being the offensive coordinator, he was not going to do any of his regular weekly radio appearances this season. And so I was obviously very disappointed. And, I don't know if that's something that he's going to stick with and just not do that. But we had it all set up. I was really excited. And we were a day away from recording the first one. And then we got word that he wasn't going to be doing those. And so that's where we are now. I've put in multiple requests to get him on again. And I'm sure that I'll have him on once or twice during the season, trying to get Connor Bazelak on the show as well. But we were totally open and ready when you already agreed to making that happen, and they decided not to do it. And so hopefully maybe at the end of the season or starting next season that they'll have a change of mind, and certainly would love to have him on a weekly basis.
Okay. Got a question about the Royals. Who will be the starting outfield for the Royals next year? And what about the starting rotation? Easy question, right?
Oh, geez. Starting outfield, I don't know. Jorge Soler, I know, is going to be out there. Look, I think they're going to go out. They should be in the market either via trade or free agency to go outside the organization and try to get a left fielder to replace Alex Gordon. They need another bat. Salvi was fantastic this year offensively, but that's not sustainable. But you would think that he's still going to be a useful bat in the lineup. Mondesi's up and down. I mean, he's either the worst hitter on the planet or hits like an MVP, and there's no in between. So he's super inconsistent. Whit Merrifield's still one of the most underrated hitters in the game. Soler, we've seen if he stays healthy, could be a terrific home run hitter. they have a black hole at first base. They need to fix first base, so I think they'll move Hunter Dozier over to first base and upgrade the defense there, and that'll be a little bit of a better bat. I like what I saw from Miguel Franco at third base, enough to hold that down. They're in a holding pattern, waiting for Bobby Witt Jr., who will be a star. He'll be the best hitter on the team in a couple of years. I think right now they're seeing if Nicky Lopez can hit just enough to justify keeping him in the lineup. He's terrific defensively, but that's more important at shortstop and third base. I mean, you can get by with an adequate second baseman if he hits a lot, but Nicky Lopez is not hitting enough. But I like him a lot, and defensively, that double play combination with him and Mondesi could be terrific. But they got to go get they have to get another bat, and I'd like to see him get it in the outfield. So Soler is going to be out there, and Whit Merrifield, if they decide that's what his future is, unless they decided to pull the plug on the Nicky Lopez situation, Whit could always go back to second base or just move around. But I want them to go outside the organization and either make a trade or sign a free agent, because you do have that opportunity now with Alex Gordon's money off the books and with Ian Kennedy, who's making a lot of money. His money's off the books. You could take just half of that and get a quality bat out in the outfield. So I expect them to make some kind of move, and they do have a plethora of pitching prospects where if they needed to move one, they could. I love Brady Singer. I thought he showed a tremendous amount of growth and maturity, and he was really good down the stretch. I mean, Chris Bubich, I think, is going to be a good 4 or 5 down the wire. I mean, the guys that are like projected to be the best, starting pitchers, Asa Lacy and Daniel Lynch. I mean, and Jackson Kowar, we haven't seen them yet. And then Brad Keller, he's solid. He doesn't wow you with big strikeout numbers, but I'll take him as my 3 starter. So it's really exciting to see. And their bullpen with Josh Stahlmont, they've got a lot of pieces there, and it makes sense where it kind of feels like they're at that point like they were before they went on that run, and it was different then, but they had a lot of offensive prospects. And so they said, okay, we're going to make a bold move here. And when they traded Will Myers, and they got James Shields and Wade Davis. And so, and so it kind of feels like they're getting that point, but now they have all these pitching prospects and they desperately need offense. And so maybe you're going to see that kind of deal now, just the opposite, where they trade pitching for offense like they did back then, which really set up when they traded the offense for pitching. And so I expect them to make a deal to add a bat. And so who's going to be in the outfield right now? I'll say Soler, Merrifield, and someone that's not in the organization.
Okay. Question. Nebraska was in the vanguard of pushing for Big Ten football to be played this year. How happy are they going to be Saturday at playing Ohio State?
I don't know who asked that question, but I'm already getting my tweet ready. So like when they're down 21-0, it's going to be like, hey, so is Nebraska really still excited about playing in the Big Ten this season? Is this what they wanted? I can't wait. It's got set. So hopefully Nebraska doesn't pull anything. So we've seen some wild outcomes, but my, pardon the language, but my smart ass tweets about Nebraska wanting to play football are ready to go during their game against Ohio State. So let's go Buckeyes.
How shocked were you to learn that Puka Williams has chosen to opt out 5 weeks into the season?
I guess from what I heard, his mother is battling cancer.
Yeah, I think
so. Totally understand that. And like that's Damian Williams with the same thing. But I mean, I wouldn't blame the kid if he just wanted to leave. And would you want to be there and play for that? I mean, that's a train wreck. And it's clear Les Miles isn't the answer there. And they're just going to keep spinning their wheels. And what's really kind of awesome about it is when you look, I mean, all the 3 local schools that we talk about on A10 the most, all in that same time frame, making their college football hires. And it feels like Missouri nailed it with Eli Drinkwater. It feels that there's a lot that remains to be seen, but I think we all feel good about what we've seen, where this is headed. And what are the 2 most important things? Head coach and quarterback. I feel good about that for Mizzou right now. K-State, say what you want about K-State, that was a home run. Chris Kleiman is perfect for them. They have a freshman starting at quarterback, and it just feels like they're going to keep on chugging and winning, 8 games a year and always be competitive. And hell, they beat Oklahoma twice. I mean, how many coaches start their career at a school and go 2-0 against Oklahoma? And then you got Kansas, who again tried to go the easy way out. And you would have thought that they learned their lesson with the Charlie Weiss thing. Hey, let's hire a big name who will absolutely, positively not be successful here. And so they did it again with Les Miles. I like Les Miles as a guy, but it's just that's and who knows if there's a good hire for Kansas right now. But that thing, that's a big swing and a miss.
Another question about the Royals. What bats do you think would be available via trade or free agency?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question. I don't know. I have to look deeper at the rosters of availability, but my suspicion is they're going to go, and it's hard to know what teams are going to try. I think they're going to go the trade route. They're never going to be a team that goes out and throws a whole bunch of money at free agents, and so it just depends on who matches up. Like, say for instance, the kind of deal that the Rays made, and I'm sorry if there's any St. Louis Cardinals fans in here, but a Rosarina, right, who's been the superstar of the postseason. Back in January, the Rays made a trade where they traded a pitching prospect named Matthew Liberatore for a Rosarina and Jose Martinez. And then look at that trade now. And so something like that, where they find a team that has a surplus of outfielders that wants a pitching prospect. And that's the perfect, right? That's the blueprint for what the Royals want to do. So I don't have a whole lot of names for you, unless St. Louis has some more outfielders they want to give away. But that's what I think they're going to do. They're going to find a team that has a log jam of outfielders that needs a pitching prospect, and they're going to go in that route because they want to get a player that's young and controllable, that they don't have to break the bank for. And like with the Rays, if the Rays call me to make a trade, I'm hanging up on them because they're going to ask for someone that maybe doesn't look too good on paper, and they're asking for a reason, and it feels like you're going to get screwed in that trade. And so I would not deal with the Rays whatsoever. But for the Royals, they seem to like to make a lot of trades with the San Diego Padres. And I've even heard like a crazy rumor out there. I'm not saying I'm campaigning for this, but maybe there might be some interest mutually if they ate some of the money to bring Eric Hosmer back and stick him at first base. Will that solve everything? No, but he's light years better than what they've been rolling out there at first base. So they're going to try to get creative. And I would say trade is the route. Other names I have, I just be making them up. But hey, I think it's important that at least they're at a point now where I feel like they can make one or two moves, and perhaps if this pitching comes through, end up being competitive sooner than later.
Last question. Have you had a chance to talk to John Sherman and talk to him about what a shock this first year as an owner might have been?
You know what? Not too much, again, because they haven't made a whole bunch of availability for anyone. And any availability is decided by them and on Zoom. But I've heard some comments from him, and I've talked to several people that know him and a few people in the ownership group. And look, it's who could have expected this? You buy the team, and then this is what you have to deal with. And so and that's why I say too, even though they do have money coming off the books and they could go out and sign a free agent, you just don't know how anxious they're going to be with so much uncertainty out there. So I think the trade route's better. But I like John Sherman a lot, and the people that I respect, their opinions about baseball and about ownership, all they do is rave about them. And so I really think, and especially that the amount of philanthropical endeavors that he's involved in Kansas City and what he does for the community, he seems like just a terrific owner for the Royals, and they're in good hands moving forward.
Don't want to let you get away with getting some thoughts on Mizzou basketball for this season.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I love Konzo, but it's been disappointing, after 3 years. And every spot he's gone, he coaches for 3 years and he's moved on because you've seen something in the second or third year. And it's kind of gone backwards here, where they had, they made the tournament his first year, and then the second year and third year, they've been on the outside looking in. They got to make the tournament this year, right? This is year 4. These are all his players, and it seems like the situation with the roster is the best it's been as far as depth. And so, even though like part of me thinks like, well, I don't want to have any expectations because I've been disappointed the past couple of years. I think the expectation should be for a head coach to make the NCAA tournament the fourth year, and especially with the amount of players he has returning. And if somehow, I know I'm asking a lot, Jeremiah Tillman could not foul quite as much. I know I say that every year, and I feel like a moron whenever I have Gabe the Arm and we talk about, they worked with him, they say they figured it out, and he's going to be able to be available out there more often. And then like the next game, he gets 2 fouls in 3 minutes, and then you're sitting. And I just feel like they could be so good with him, if he's available and healthy and not fouling. And so, I mean, you look on paper, the talent's there. I like it, but my expectations, I'll be really disappointed if they don't make the NCAA tournament. But then again, with talent, I don't know what the NCAA tournament is going to be.
Right.
Is it going to be 64? Is it going to be 68? Is everyone going to be eligible? Like everyone's eligible for bowl games? And I was criticizing Les Miles. I should say that he does have Kansas Bowl eligible this year, which against all odds was that, and so he should maybe win Coach of the Year.
Okay.
And again, everyone's bowl eligible. So,
Stephen, thank you. We want to be respectful of your time. You're always a great guest. We had Seren on last week, and I just got to say, Kansas City is very lucky to have the quality of sports talk shows that we do. You do a great job.
Hopefully I was better than him, because that would be a slap in my face if he was better. So just lie to me and say I was better than him, and I'll have that, to carry me through. I'm
an independent politically, and I'll stay independent on that topic. All right, Stephen St. John, he's the host of the Border Patrol, 8:10, 6 to 10 a.m., and you're still on 38 The Spot the first hour, right?
I am. You tune in there, and boy, you listen to these voices, and you just can't wait to see what we look like. It's never disappointing. All right. Well, hey, you do a great job. Hey, even tell Nate hi, even though he's a Jayhawk, he does a good job too. So. Nah, I'll pass on that. Okay. Hey, folks, our guest next week will be one of Stephen's buddies, Gary Barnett, former Colorado Northwestern head coach, and now a college football analyst. He's always a popular guest for the Tiger Club. We have a home game now coming up this week. Again, it was originally scheduled for October 31st. So if you have tickets or parking for that game, remember it goes to this weekend, October 24th. If you're interested in the Tiger Club tickets or parking pass, send an email to president@kctigerclub.com. Remember, these Zoom meetings, spread the word so we can get membership up and have people watch it on YouTube. The only revenue we have is the memberships this year because we didn't have a golf tournament, so we really need your support. So please take the time to spread the word. These Zoom meetings have been a lot of fun. Stephen, thanks again. Folks, we'll see you next week when we have Gary Barnett. Thanks.